right, I'm back. Now, I told y'all that I was going to be releasing all of my pizza videos this week, right? I've already shown y'all how I make my marinara sauce. Now I'm going to show y'all how I make the dough. Now, this is a recipe that I found online years ago, and I've been using it ever since, child. Now, both of this, the yeast and the flour, I got on Amazon. The brand is Caputo. You're going to need some dry yeast. You're also going to need some type 00 flour. You're going to need some olive oil, and I like to use pink Himalayan coarse salt. You see that? You see that? You see that? Don't ask me for no damn ingredient list. Now, come on. Now, like I said, Caputo is the brand that I'm going to be using. I wanted to make sure that I used the best brands, the most authentic brands possible. I am adding in a little less than 1/4 of a teaspoon of yeast to my warm water. Now, the reason why I'm using such a little amount of yeast is because you really want this to be a slow, active rise, okay? You don't want this to be kind of like your typical like white bread. You want this to really take its time because the longer it sits, the more flavor is going to build. After you let that bloom for about 10 minutes or so, once you start to see some bubbles forming, then you can go on ahead and add in your type 00 flour. Then on top of that, that's when you can go on ahead and add in your salt. You don't want to add your salt directly to the yeast because that could potentially kill it, and ain't nobody got time for that. And now we're just going to go on ahead and just give this a little mix. Like, nothing about this process is difficult at all. This is super, super easy to make. If you don't have a stand mixer, you can absolutely do this entire thing by hand, but I will be using my stand mixer a little bit later on when it's time to knead. But just so you know, you don't have to have a stand mixer in order for this to work. Now that we got it roughly mixed, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cover this up with cling film, and then I'm going to put a towel over it, and then I'm going to store it away somewhere where it's dark and dry so that it can almost double in size. Now, I'm not going to tell you guys exactly how long that's going to take because depending on where you live in the world, the elevation of your home, the temperature in your house, that could drastically, vary. As long as it's doubled in size, then you know you're working on the right path. Now, at this point, I'm going to transfer this over to my stand mixer. As you guys can see, I have my dough hook on there, and I'm not going to allow this to go past the number 4. I don't know if you guys know that, but anytime you're using your dough hook, don't ever go past 4. It's just going to do too much. Now, I'm going to allow this to knead for probably roughly about 5 to 6 minutes. And if you're doing it by hand, you might have to do it a little bit longer, but you'll know when it's done once it's nice and smooth and it's no longer giving you problems when you're kneading it by hand. Again, I allow this to go for about 5 or 6 minutes. It just makes it a lot easier on me. Just to give you guys a heads up, this is going to make about 3 medium-sized pizzas. Now, one thing you want to be mindful of is you want to make sure that you're not getting out of control with adding in too much extra flour. Hydration with pizza dough is really, really important, so you want to make sure that you're not really drying it out. As you guys can see, this dough comes together very easy, honey. Very easy. It doesn't really give you any problems at all. And right now, all I'm simply trying to do is just shape it. I'm just trying to make sure that it's nice and smooth. And look, just like that, I've already gotten it fully together. So now that I've done that, I'm actually going to take the exact same bowl that I already had, which was that stand mixer, and I'm going to add in just a little bit of oil. Does not need to be swimming in it. Please do not use vegetable oil. Use olive oil. Give it a little wipe around on the inside so that nothing really sticks, and then I'm going to transfer this dough back into the stand mixer, and once again, I'm going to cover it up with a little bit of cling film. As you guys can see, I've added in just a little bit more oil just to make sure that it doesn't dry out. But I'm going to wrap this up with some cling film, put the towel back over it, and again, I'm going to allow this to sit. For me personally, in my home, the first time I let it sit was roughly about 2 hours. This time when I allowed it to sit, it took about maybe another 2 or 3 hours for it to get to the size that I wanted. Again, that's really going to vary depending on where you live and, whatever your conditions are. But now that this has doubled in size, we're in the last steps. Now, at this point, I'm going to transfer it back out onto my work surface again. And as you can see, I have lightly dusted. Again, you do not want to dry this out, so just be mindful of that. There's nothing wrong with adding in flour, but just try not to get, overboard with it. At this point, all I'm simply trying to do is just shape it back up into another ball so that I can make sure that I can cut it out somewhat evenly. Now, I'm going to be measuring this out just so that I can make sure that all of my pizza dough balls are kind of even. But honey, you ain't got to do all of that. It's not that damn deep. I just did it that way just so that I can kind of keep track of, what's going on in the recipe. I found these cute little silicone pizza containers on Amazon as well. So y'all can look that up and, try to find it. Again, there's no right or wrong way on how to do this because I'm measuring it out. Like I said, this particular recipe made about 3 medium-sized pizzas all together. And that's really it, you guys. Now, if you wanted to, you could make the pizza right now with this dough. I personally allow it to sit in the fridge up to 2 days before I use it. Remember, the longer it sits, the more flavors are going to develop. But I would say don't allow it to sit for more than 3 days because then it's going to turn into something completely different. But up to 3 days, you can store it in the fridge. And whenever you're about to use it, just make sure you take it out of the fridge about a good 45 minutes before you're about to use it so that it can get back to room temperature and then have yourself a blast. So just so y'all know, all of the videos that you guys are going to see when you're seeing me making like a Neapolitan style pizza or something along those lines, it will be with this recipe. I'm going to finish this up, pop these all in the fridge, and then just like that, I have homemade dough. And it really is just as simple. It's not complicated. You can do it all by hand. You don't have to have any special equipment. All right? I'll talk to y'all soon and get ready, honey, because all the pizza videos are about to drop. Bye.